In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. In 1494, all hell broke loose. Christopher Columbus was looking for a new route to Asia across the Atlantic, but what he did end up finding led to far greater riches, pain, genocide, exploration, and gold. A whole lot of gold.
I love gold!
The Spanish were not the first people to find gold in the Americas. Gold was first used in the Andes in the 2nd millennium BC. In Central America in the 1st century AD. Gold was used by the Maya, the Inca, the Aztecs. There was gold vessels, funerary masks, headdresses, collar studs, bells, trinkets, figurines. The list goes on. Sometimes they used gold to be deposited into lakes or on top of mountains or in temples to appease the gods. For the Inca and Aztecs, gold was limited to whomever the emperor allowed, mainly nobility and the royal family. Gold was plentiful in the Americas, to say the least, but back to Europe. Gold was rare. It is said that if you took all the gold in Europe at the time that they discovered America, put it all together in a big pile, took that pile, it would all fit into a 6-foot cube. It would still weigh over 80 tons, but pales into comparison of the gold found in the Americas. The first gold that Spain would find in the New World was in modern-day Haiti in the Dominican Republic, the island of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico in 1508, Jamaica 1509, Cuba 1511. Ponce de Leon himself was looking for treasure when he landed in Florida in 1513. Looking for gold, he didn't find any, but he did find the Gulf Stream, making his return trip much faster. Cortez started his conquest of Mexico in 1519. Gold was the main thing on his mind. When he met Montezuma, it is said Cortez was presented with a necklace of golden crabs. The Aztec Empire fell in 1521. All the temples, palaces, monuments, home, and people were looted, captured, tortured, and killed to reveal the locations of any valuables. The tribes were eventually given a quota, if you will, a yearly tribute to the Spanish of gold. They also stole the locations of the Aztec mines. They took them over and started new gold and silver mines to keep steady flow of gold to bring back to Spain. Pizarro the Conquistador attacked the Inca Empire in 1532. The ruler Atahualpa was captured and held for ransom by the Spanish. Sun discs were common in the Inca civilization. A temple in Cusco was covered with 700 half-meter square sheets of gold, each one weighing over 4 pounds. Atahualpa was promised to be released if he could pay a ransom of gold. The Spanish wanted a room to be filled with gold. It was measured 20 by 15.5 feet. The gold was paid and melted down in 9 large forges. The final weight was 13,420 pounds of pure gold, worth well over $300 million today. The king received 1/5 of this bounty. Pizarro got around 630 pounds of gold after paying all his men and the crown. Nearly $15 million in today's currency, from just one ransom from Atahualpa. Just like the Aztecs, the Inca mines were looted, the rivers were panned. By 1540, silver mining took over the gold mines. 85% of all precious metals were silver. Treasure ships were going back and forth from Spain since gold was found in the Americas. Now that same thing goes on for years, starting and emptying mines across the Americas, murdering, pillaging the natives for gold. Wars from 1688 to 1715 disrupted the trade from America to Spain. Spain desperately needed the treasures from the New World. The English sank a large number of warships. A treasure ship was sunk in 1708. Another one was captured. 1711, Another was sunk in a hurricane. The wars ended in 1715. Spain's coffers were drained, and a fleet was sent to the Americas to bring back gold and silver, which had been accumulating in a stockpile during the wars. There was 2 fleets in the summer of 1715, the Escuadrón de Tierra Firme, which did the South American route from Cartagena, and the Flotilla de Nueva España, which did Mexico out of Veracruz. I might be butchering them names, but my Spanish is... The cargo was loaded and set sail. The 2 fleets combined into one and set sail from Havana, Cuba. The summer months were more favorable to sailing. The oceans were calmer, and the headwinds were gentler. As we know today, the summer months in the Caribbean and the Atlantic is hurricane season. Now back in 1715, a weather forecast was, unheard of. You only knew what you could see and feel. That was your weather forecast, with storms being hundreds of miles wide and moving an average of 15 to 20 miles an hour. With winds up to 200 miles an hour sustained, the chances of an old wooden sailing ship outrunning a hurricane is, well, I'll let you be the judge on that. The fleet from Mexico was captained by Don Juan de Ubila, and the South American fleet was captained by Antonio de Echeverez. Mind the butchery. The squadrons of terra firma consisted of 6 treasure ships. The flagship was a captured English ship, the Hampton Court. It had chests of silver and gold coins, gold bars, gold dust, and jewelry. The Almantra was equally laden with riches. The Nuestra Senora de la Concepcion had gold coins, gold bars, and chests full of silver. The Señor San Miguel, the El Ciervo, and the Pache completed the squadron of the terra firma. The Flotilla de Nueva España had 5 ships. The flagship, the Capitana, carried 1,300 chests with 3 million silver coins, gold bars, silver bars, jewelry, emeralds, pearls, and precious Chinese porcelain. The Almantra had 1,000 chests of silver coins. Each chest had 3,000 coins in it. The Refuerzo had 81 chests of silver coins, 50 chests of worked silver. The Patache had 44,000 pieces of 8. The French warship Griffin was the final ship. Fleets were behind schedule. The crown desperately needed the treasure, so the fleets decided to set sail to Spain. From Havana, Cuba on July 24th, 1715. A beautiful calm day. No one expected what was about to happen. They followed the Gulf Stream up the east coast of Florida, keeping far enough from the hazards near shore. The first 5 days were uneventful. On July 29th, 1715, the sky was heavy with moisture. Waves approached from the southeast. A breeze blew in. Some began to be concerned. They knew, even back then, these were signs of a tropical storm. The storm was heading directly north, with sustained winds of 100 miles an hour almost directly east of the fleet. On the night of the 29th, the storm turned to the east coast of Florida, directly into the path of both fleets. July 30th, the winds increased to 30 miles an hour. The waves increased. By nightfall, the waves reached 20 foot. Winds of 40 miles an hour, driving the convoy closer and closer towards shore. The general ordered the ships into the wind and to stay clear of the reefs and the shoals. By midnight, the ships were almost uncontrollable. By 4 a.m., the bulk of the storm struck the battered ships, dragging them into the reefs. Ubila's flagship, the Capitana, was destroyed. Almost everyone on board was killed, including Ubila himself. The ships were battered over miles along the coast, washing up wreckage, dead bodies, and survivors. The only ship to survive was the French ship, the Griffin. It headed to the northeast into the storm. The captain was unaware of where the dangers along the coast were, so he kept his ship further offshore. They didn't even know the treasure ships were all lost, or that the survivors were on the mainland. The Griffin arrived in Brest in France, August 30th, 1715. On the morning of the 31st, the men who survived found themselves beaten and battered, half drowned, far away from any known settlement. No food or fresh water. The men did not know the extent of the disaster since the ships were separated, sometimes miles apart from one another. Many survivors were dying each day, and by August 6th, Admiral Don Francisco Salmon surveyed all the damage and decided all the ships were lost. He sent the pilot from the Capitan and 18 men in a small launch boat that survived the wreck to go back to Cuba and to raise the alarm of the disaster. 3 ships were still missing, the survivors not knowing the full extent of the damage. After a few days, relief ships set sail to the stranded survivors with supplies, soldiers, and salvage equipment. They began work immediately, dragging the ocean floor, pulling up wreckage. Most importantly, chests of coins, as well as gold, silver, and jewelry. Other relief ships were sent from St. Augustine to join the salvage expedition. By September, they were happy with the amount of treasure that was recovered. The admiral wrote asking for 25 soldiers and ammunition to guard the king's treasure and property that was recovered from the wrecks. By October, over 5 million pieces of eight had been recovered, large amounts of gold, silver, and jewelry, a large amount of the treasure. Efforts continued for years, even into 1718. News traveled fast of all the great wealth at the bottom of the sea. Of course, looters, pirates, and privateers made their way towards the wrecks. In 1716, pirate Henry Jennings and his ship Barsheba, with John Willis on the Eagle, attacked the Spanish salvage camp. No deaths were reported, but the pirates made off with 120,000 pieces of eight, 2 large iron guns, 2 bronze cannons. Even after the Spanish left in 1718, others searched for the treasure. There was still a large amount of treasure on the ocean floor, which started the search that is still going on strong some 304 years later, after the Spanish left their salvage operation. Some of the ships were mapped out, others were visible protruding out of the waves. For years and years, passing ships would search the wrecks for treasure left behind, but the wrecks passed into memory, forgotten on the ocean floor. Around 1,500 sailors perished on board the sunken ships. Of the 11 ships that sunk, 7 have been found in modern times. 2 of the still missing ships were salvaged in the recovery efforts during the salvage expedition by the Spanish. Treasure from the 1715 treasure fleet turns up every year, not only on the ocean floor, but washed up on beaches by hurricanes over the past 300 plus years. Florida's east coast is loaded with shipwrecks, but there is something special about the 1715 treasure fleet. No one knows how much treasure is still buried on Florida's beaches or under its waves. Millions of dollars worth of gold, silver, and jewelry has been found over the years. It is still out there. All you have to do is find it. Now, I've been fascinated by any shipwreck, really, but a treasure fleet is something special about it. And the 1715 treasure fleet is just one of those stories that baffles the mind. And it's amazing that anybody survived this tragedy. Imagine you're on a tiny little 16th century sailing ship. There ain't no motor in that thing. You are dependent upon the winds and the Gulf Stream to get you where you need to go. You can't get out of it. That is the reason why this disaster happened. They were a little too close to the shore. Most of the people, they've been sailing back and forth for a long time. But that one guy, the French guy, in his ship, he stayed off ashore because he didn't know the waters very well. And that's really the only reason that that ship survived. They were far enough off ashore, and he went directly into the storm at a northeast direction, and he got around it. The other ships didn't fare too well. They are scattered along the coast on the east side of Florida, around Sebastian, Florida, that area. The 11 ships, we know about 7 of them from what I could find, information that I could find. We found 7 out of the 11. But the other 2, the Spanish, they got there before it. Imagine back then, it was shallow. They were all pushed up above the reefs. The masts, everything were still sticking up. There was wreckage everywhere. We don't have that today. Today we got all the wood rotting at the bottom of the ocean. There's cannons down there. That's how they find these. There's cannons. There's gold. There's everything that was on board that did not disintegrate. So finding these ships is difficult, but obviously they're doing pretty good at it because they found quite a few ships over the years. There's many documentaries out there about treasure fleets, sunken shipwrecks all throughout Florida. But the 1715 treasure fleet, there is just something very special about it. Now, I personally have never found anything real good on the beaches. You know, I usually relic hunt inland, but there is quite a lot of people that spend all their time on the beaches and they find some incredible stuff. There is tons and tons and tons of treasure that has been found over the past 60, 70 years of metal detectorists, scuba divers, going out there. It's just unfathomable, the amount. And there's been lots of lawsuits with it too, being underwater with the scuba diving and all that. I don't know all the details about all the lawsuits. Basically on the beach treasure hunting, that I don't think anybody has problems with. It's when they're out there scuba diving on the wrecks and everything is when the lawsuits from the state of Florida happen. But many people have found a lot of treasure out there, and there is still an ungodly amount of treasure that has to be out there. Now the Spanish, they did not salvage all the ships, and even some of the ships that they're hunting today, the Spanish dredged that whole area. They got as much as they possibly can for years and years. And privateers and pirates and just general fishermen and people going back and forth, those wrecks, they knew where the wrecks were. This spread across all of the Americas. It spread across back in Spain. Every time people went by, they tried to get a little something, you know. All that treasure that was down there. And they were pushed up against the shore, so at low tide it was shallower. So they were dredging, and I'm sure people could dive down there. The masts were still sticking up. You could still see the ships. So just imagine that. All those treasure ships scattered across the coast, all of that gold, millions and millions and millions of pieces of gold and silver and jewelry and jewels and everything your little heart could desire. It's just one story of many out there. It's just one of those stories that warms the heart. And if you like history, I know you'll like it too. This story, well known, it's still fascinating to this day. I want to thank you all for watching. Please comment down below. It helps me out greatly. Please hit the thumbs up, anything. Comment whatever you want. It really helps a fella out. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you on the next. Peace.